And technology enables language because, as we know from the last few days, technology is enabling us to do more with language and with multilingual scenarios than ever before. When language is offered in someone's native or preferred language, technology comes alive for them. In Rwanda, there are 3 main languages: French, English, and Kinyarwanda. When a language is not offered in Kinyarwanda, for example, the consumer of the service or on their device must memorize the steps in English, for example, that it takes to download a web app or to consume some scenario of technology. Imagine productivity and how that changes when a local language is available. These photographs were taken last spring when my team took a trip into Africa and spent some time in Rwanda and showed these folks who were at a reseller that we had a Kinyarwanda language interface pack available for them. You can see on their faces how delighted they are. So the challenge is to understand how people are using technology to live their life, to conduct business, and to impact the world around them. And the key for us is to understand what role does language or languages play. So, today anyone with a communication device has the power to conduct business. And as devices proliferate out into the world, into remote locations and populations, imagine how many new businesses are born. Think about that small business owner, perhaps out in a remote village in Africa. How are they going to use their mobile device to engage in the world around them, to conduct a transaction, to broker trade of their crops? And what role does language play in enabling them to participate in a global economy? Even at the local level, participating in a global economy changes how businesses profit, how nonprofits reach more with less, and how educators can increase effectiveness. At times, it can even be a matter of life and death. If you were fortunate to attend Translators Without Borders session yesterday, we can see how in scenarios where a community healthcare worker may be the only access to healthcare out in a remote part of the world, how are they going to respond in a medical emergency if the local language is not available and the level of English may be low? Think about how experiences can transform for educators and for education and learning when language is considered. Oops.
Hi, can you guess where I live?
¿Te encuentras en América del Norte?
Yes. Do you live in Central Mexico?
Sí. ¿Te encuentras en Estados Unidos de América?
Yes. Do you live in a capital city?
Sí. ¿Estás cerca de Seattle?
You're very close to Seattle. Are you in Mexico City?
Sí. ¿Estás en Tacoma?
Yes.
Very good guess.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Do you like living in Mexico City?
¿Te gusta vivir en la Ciudad de México?
Aquí está muy lindo.
Here is very nice.
What do you do for fun?
¿Qué haces para divertirte?
Voy a las playas de México.
I'm going to the beaches of Mexico.
I like to swim.
Me gusta nadar.
A mí también.
Me too.
Where in the world do you wish to travel?
¿A dónde en el mundo te gustaría viajar?
A Rusia.
To Russia.
¿Y tú?
And you?
Everywhere.
Sería increíble algún día verte en México.
It would be amazing to see you someday in Mexico.
I would really like to visit you sometime.
Me gustaría mucho visitarte algún día.
A mí también.
Me too.
So relevance is a major, if unappreciated, barrier to access. This according to a report on global internet access by internet.org, meaning the more relevant the content, including the language, and that the language is right, the more that users will consume it. Mobile, in fact, is driving global internet adoption. Now, in 2015, 3 billion people are online. And this is an incredible milestone, but it also means that only 40% of the world's population has ever connected to the internet. But the infrastructure is there. 90% of the world lives within the range of a mobile signal. But many people are not online, either because they're not aware of the internet, but also because the internet doesn't have the relevant content in the right language for them. So to provide relevant content to reach 80% of the world would require sufficient content in at least 92 languages. And as we travel throughout the world with our devices, consuming services digitally, which language or languages do we want to consume? Is there a difference in expectation between a written and a spoken language of preference? Multilingualism exists everywhere. Borders are increasingly irrelevant in this globally connected single digital market. Let me ask you by a show of hands, how many of you brought your device with you and have used it since you've been here in Latvia to navigate a direction, to send a text, to try to communicate, to go to web service? All of us have. My guess is that it didn't always work exactly as you expected it to. We have a lot to do. Multilingual is the new monolingual. Location is not necessarily a key distinguishable feature for language anymore. In Canada, for example, we're all well accustomed to looking to provide content in English and in French, but there's a rapidly rising population of Chinese speakers in Canada. For example, in Richmond, BC, which is the 4th largest city, has an immigration population of nearly 70%, which is the highest in Canada, and 50% of that population is speaking Chinese. This is now exceeding New York and San Francisco. And there are people living there who come from China, and Hong Kong, Taiwan, and so forth, Malaysia, Singapore. It's very diverse. So it's so much so that even the Chinese that's being spoken in Canada in these areas is getting its own sort of unique dialect and flavor. According to linguist David Crystal, multilingualism promotes a climate of mutual respect. This is a look at tweets by language in New York City. No surprise that English, followed by Spanish, is first. Then there's Portuguese, Japanese, Russian, French, Turkish, Arabic, and Italian. And it's interesting to look a little deeper at this study, which you can find on flowingdata.com, how you can see at, say, JFK or even, on the ferry boats, between ferry boats and Liberty Island and Ellis Island, how those tweets by language change. One interesting user comment on this map, it was Chinese was missing. And the reason is that they are using a local tweeting application. They're not using Twitter. In London, where they've also done this map, the tweets in English are 8 million, nearly matched by Spanish, followed by Portuguese, then Japanese, Russian, Korean, French, Turkish, Arabic, and Italian. So I was fortunate to work on Microsoft.com for the first 10 of its now 21 years. This is a look of 20 years of Microsoft.com. I was there when we went live in 1994. We were a team of about 12 people. And my job was to help figure out how to get all of those websites to render in all of the different languages. Quite literally sitting with the webmaster and looking at Notepad, trying to figure out how we were going to make it look like Greek, make it render properly in all those different character sets. So it was quite an interesting time to be working on the web. In '97, we added our country drop-down list. And I move you to 2002 when there is a localized article about the localization of Microsoft.com, that's me, and that is Deirdre, who's sitting there. She works for Moravia. We were there together with our boss. They called us the Charlie's Angels of Microsoft.com. Not really, but. And, you know, it was such an interesting time. I was talking with Deirdre last night. We've been friends for a very long time. And she was reminding me of how amazing it was to see the first Unicode multilingual database for registration systems come alive. In the words of Arthur C. Clarke, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And that's how it felt to be a part of the web at that time. And I feel that it's very similar to how we feel today with all of the opportunity in front of us in this multilingual, single digital market. But the landscape has changed. All of us here have worked with globalization and localization of packaged product, and I'm assuming many of us have worked with packaged products, and are now working in this environment where you have short lead times, everything's agility, quick. You have to figure out how to get things localized and published in such a short amount of time, and there's an interdependency among these connected services of the web that are also playing into how we think about localization. And they travel, these experiences, as we know, travel with us. And today, the other really key thing is that I look at it as a customer-driven experience. Consumers are really deciding what to consume, where to consume it, and in what language or languages. So in the industry, we have to figure out how to deliver those multilingual experiences for the customer to choose. A more connected world is a world of more opportunity, a freer expression, and greater innovation. And by eliminating those barriers, the internet increases opportunities for everyone. But how do you enable those opportunities? It's not enough to understand a single currency to offer a single locale or a time zone, because the time zone may change if the person travels. And so we need to account for that. And it's not enough to understand the language or languages for a given location. You need to remain fluid to the dynamics of language. Language is dynamic, it changes and it evolves. And the digital world has changed, so rather than letting this be the digital divide, we seek to have a digital unite. So we've heard a lot about big data and the Internet of Things in the last couple days, and really, this is about understanding which markets, which languages, and it requires a diversity of data. That means boots on the ground, people coming from those markets, from those languages, and understanding their expectations and their needs. You need to consider the architecture, technology considerations, the platform, restrictions, and so forth. What is the near, what is the longer term strategy? And what role does language play for that market? And does it differ by context within a market? What will move your global business forward? Where do you utilize language to enrich your customer's experience? And the role that standards play. Standards simplify the process. They allow these multi-geographically located technologies to consume multiple languages. And many of these standards benefit the entire ecosystem, and in kind, we benefit from the work of others. And that's what this group is all about. This is a look at the things that we think about on my team, which I'll spend a few minutes talking about, to use standards as a way of being more effective, providing, in a company the size of ours, really clear, instructive guidance on what the proper procedures are for standards, and then how do you engineer those in through the use of things like APIs. This is a program that my team runs called, well, we have the local language program you may have heard about, which enables the LIPS, the language interface packs, and to enable more native tongue languages to embrace technology. We also have the language portal, and here you can search and download all of our terminology. We have style guides in many languages, 108, I believe. Millions of reusable strings, localized strings that are available for free. Translation APIs, the Multilingual App Toolkit, which Jan Nelson, who's here as well, my colleague, manages. and we have content up there in 108 languages, building a bridge between languages, cultures, and technology. This is a look at the structure of my team at Microsoft. We have 3 areas that we cover. One is the long-standing commitment that Microsoft has to respecting cultural preferences, being appropriate, understanding and complying with any local regulations or requirements, and really just embracing the diversity of the world through our products and services and marketing campaigns. We also have world readiness, where we consider globalization and localizability requirements, and then the language program, where we look to enable the right language for the right experience. And in a company like ours, how consistent is that experience across our properties? And so the way that we do that is we train the rest of the company to be subject matter experts, to understand what to look for and how to vet scenarios for risk and opportunity. We have trainings that we offer. We have various tools for text scanning, tons of content and articles and guidance on images, symbolism, hand gestures, you name it. And we also provide solutions for our developers, internally and externally. We do reviews of maps, flags, all of that. This is our world, our work in a word cloud. And so readiness is about enabling that right experience for the right market and in the right languages. But how we see the world really depends on our perspective. I have my story and you have yours. And our jobs are not to reflect the world as who we are, but rather who we are not. And the key there is understanding the diversity of a global perspective that is at once global and local. Languages, culture, sensibilities. As my team cartographer notes, this is not an upside down map, it is a south up map. We must redefine what local means. So this picture was actually taken in Bellevue, Washington, in the US, which is a neighboring city to where Microsoft headquarters are located in Redmond. And she is actually participating in a festival called Holy. And the interesting thing is that Bellevue has 80 different languages spoken. So the diversity is quite rich, even near Seattle, Washington. We must embrace diversity. We've heard a lot about that in the last couple days. Latvia is clearly a very culturally rich country. There's the official language of Latvian, and there are 2 other languages, forgive me if I mispronounce, Livonian and Latgalian, which are protected by law. Russian is widely spoken as well. Traditional Latvian folklore and dance and songs, as we experienced last night, with the lovely Balsis choir, and coming from music from the Renaissance to the Romantic era, and even American classic rock like Journey comes alive in Latvia, as we experienced last night. So we seek to remove linguistic barriers. And technology has never been more personal. We take our devices with us, we take our you with us when we travel, on our mobile devices, on gaming controllers, on our desktops and our laptops, from text to text, voice to text to voice to voice, and gestures. If I can get this to play. The mouse is not my friend. There you go, thank you.
This project is a sign language translator. It translates from one sign language to another. It helps the hearing and the deaf communicate.
你好,
Imagine a deaf person walking into a doctor's office. The doctor is a regular doctor, probably can't speak in sign language.
Hello, my name is Dr. Wang. What is hurting you?
but the patient wants to communicate with the doctor. Today they'd have to use maybe writing, and it would be very artificial. But here with this technology, they could use signing, and the doctor would be able to understand that signing. So another scenario is an information kiosk, say at an airport.
Hello, how can I help you?
And rather than say the person seeking information at that kiosk being deaf, imagine if the person at the information kiosk was deaf.
Which way is the taxi stand?
Now a hearing person could come to that kiosk and ask questions of the deaf person, and the system could help them communicate with the deaf person and vice versa.
Please go outside the terminal and make a left.
Great, thank you.
And we seek to communicate no matter where you are or what language you speak.
Mandarin is difficult, very difficult. Even the locals say so. One sound can have many different meanings. You do not want to get the pronunciation wrong. My name is Tom Carter from San Francisco. I'm a photographer based in China. I arrived in China over a decade ago just to go backpacking, but over time, China has become like my second home. I'm the author of China Portrait of a People, a photography book I created during my 2-year, 35,000-mile backpacking journey across China. I've learned some basic Mandarin, or what I call survival Chinese, but when I'm out traveling in the provinces, they don't always get me.
Can you understand me now, Shangbin?
你现在能理解我吗
Tom， 你会讲中文啦
You speak Chinese.
Thanks, Shangbin. Your English has improved too.
It's really nice to see you again, and also nice to talk to you. So, do you know where I can get a good picture from up in the hills?
那些山有很多秘密。
Yes, there are many secrets. What time should we start out for the top?
星期四早上5点出发。
Thursday. We start at 5 in the morning.
That's gonna hurt.
没关系，晚上补偿你一下，请你吃啤酒鱼。
It's okay. I will make it up to you by treating you to beer fish in the evening. Thanks, Shangbin. You know me too well.
谢谢你，你太了解我。
Communication is, of course, the key to my career. In order to be able to explore a new culture, you need to be able to communicate with its people. That's when the barriers come down and you discover the real China, and its true beauty and its secrets open up.
漂亮吗？
Good.
One more. Advance. Okay. We seek to bridge the digital divide one multilingual experience at a time. Even something as simple as planning to go to dinner, such as here in Latvia, can be a magical experience in a multilingual world. So we put people first. Where they work, where they live, where they play. People are at the center of our work. as we seek to provide the best multilingual experiences in this new era of a single digital world, one connection at a time.
Let's chit-chat and ask her. 你会说日语吗？
こんにちは。翻译外语可难不倒小娜哦。
你会说德语吗？
Guten Tag， 想试一桩，需要翻译什么外语，尽管找我吧。
你会说法语吗？
Pas de problème， 小娜愿意做你的随行翻译。
你会说西班牙语吗？
No problema， 想要翻译，随时找我吧。
你会说英语吗？
No problem， 翻译外语可难不倒小娜哦。
Well, Cortana will help you. She's a language expert.
She said, he says, can you speak Japanese? She says, hello in Japanese, it's a piece of cake. Can you speak German? No problem. Can you speak French? No problem. Can you speak Spanish? No problem. Can you speak English? No problem. It's a piece of cake. That's Cortana Chit Chat for China. So that's my talk for today. I'll leave you with this. Today's digitally interconnected world means meeting people where they are and connecting with them. It's about truly seeing and acknowledging people, their customs, their cultures, their language. It's about enabling people to connect and communicate with each other on their own terms. Today's multilingual single digital world means being able to communicate in the right language or languages. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paige. We have some time for questions or comments or anything that you'd like to bring up related to this very informative keynote. So anyone like to start? I see Andre.
Just as a bit of a change in terms of the more humorous approach, I just quote from Douglas Adams on the Babelfish. This reminded me very much about Babelfish. Meanwhile, the poor Babelfish, by effectively removing all barriers to communications between different races and cultures, has caused more and bloodier wars than anything else in the history of creation.
Okay. A response? Any other questions or comments? Okay, Martis.
Thank you for the talk. It was very good. I have a question about the speech technologies. For the big languages, you've worked for a long time, probably decades already. What about the smaller languages? Are you thinking about opening the technologies up so that others could jump in and fill the gap for you as well? Because, well, Microsoft will probably not develop speech technologies for small languages. It takes probably enormous resources, yeah?
Yeah.
Are you thinking about opening up, I know that Windows, if I'm correct, you can prove me wrong, does not offer some sort of integrated possibilities to add speech recognizers that for different languages that would they have it? Really?
You want to answer the question for me?
Well, we've tried to work on speech synthesizers, and that's manageable. But for speech recognizers, maybe you can comment on.
While I don't have a roadmap for, which languages, when, how, and all of that. I imagine that we're not done, and that as a company we continue to strive to embrace more languages, more technologies as we go.
But perhaps as a follow-up of that, as we've heard in the last 2 days, to make multilingualism really work, we all need to work together. And I think the question is, would Microsoft be willing to open up to the extent that for those languages that it doesn't cover, it would allow bridges or API-type connections that if somebody develops something, for example, for the local languages like Latvian, then it could be inserted there until such time, at least as Microsoft does develop for something.
Yeah,
given the hundreds of languages,
yeah.
I'm sure there will be languages that you will never be able to cover commercially.
It's a very fair question and point, in that any company will only ever be able to handle so many languages, first party, as we would call it. From there, I think you do need to look at what I would call language enablement strategies. So I have no doubt that that's part of a language roadmap moving forward in this dynamic world.
But are you thinking in that direction? Like, are you doing something in that direction so that you can open up more to the language technology community? Like yesterday, or the day before, we heard in the I don't remember the technology, like
the spell
it was
checker.
A spell, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
spell
Yeah.
checker, and they had it difficult to somehow ask you to integrate it into your solutions.
Yeah.
Well, they did all the work, but
let me try to parse the question a bit. The questions. In that scenario, I believe that it was not a technology, but more of an operational capability or lack thereof to take a third-party checker. But to address the broader question, I'm going to answer it in the perspective of, I've been at Microsoft for 24 years, since I was 22. Now you know how old I am. I was talking in the cab on the way over here that in 3 years, I will have been at Microsoft in my 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. I've had 4 children and a grandchild born since I've been there. So I've seen, I've experienced a lot. I do have a grandbaby, I know. She's 1. And wow, has the company evolved. And it's not the same company that I joined. It's not even the same company that it was a year ago. We have a new CEO, we have a new way of working, we have a new mission statement, which is to enable the planet. And one can imagine, how does language reach every person on the planet? It has to be a part of that. So while I'm not in a position to give you something real specific to bite into, check back, keep watching us, because I think that we are a new Microsoft and we will be doing new things in the space of language.
Thank you for the talk. I like the theme of people talk first, but in terms of the most of the search engines, including Bing and Google, sometimes the interface is actually country first and the language, right? So, for example, if you visit Belgium, you got different language version, right? And in Wikipedia, it's actually the opposite. It's actually language first, and you don't usually have country represented in Wikipedia. So I'm asking about the potential aggregation of all these kind of geolinguistic interface for future services. For example, can we imagine a French search engine across, Canada, France, or other French-speaking world? I mean, it's just a question about how is the people first a real people first, or just market first, right? Sorry.
First of all, that's not a marketing campaign. That was actually, I'm not a marketer, so. But it's a great point. I mean, if I go back to actually my first slide, my first point was that technology enables language and language enables technology. And I think that, that there are market approaches, there are language approaches, and there are both. And so the more that you can enable those experiences through a multilingual technology approach, then it's a matter of letting the technology create the language experience. I don't know if that's, and Jan is my colleague, he probably has more to offer.
Well, I don't know. I think I understand the question. I work within the Windows environment, now the operating systems group, which encompasses a much larger slice of Microsoft products. And for years and years and years, the strategy has been locale, or country, and it's that geography that language has been tied to. And for years and years and years, we have worked to reduce that way of thinking about language. So today what we're talking about is the multilingual opportunities in every market. Okay, so you heard Paige talk about the population of New York and the activities there. At the last Build conference, Build is kicking off in a few hours in San Francisco, but last spring down in San Francisco, I talked to people there about how in a 25-mile radius of Moscone Center, 40% of the population speak English as a second language, and it's not their preferred language. Okay, and then listing again what the diversity is of humanity, irrespective of political borders or locales. The thing is that technology, a locale, how you use a locale to set things, is embedded in a lot of code. Okay, and I'm talking a lot of code. And so to make those changes does take multiple releases. The good news with Windows 10 is that we release more frequently, and we've been working to get along that path. So I think that what you'll see is an increasing bias toward people first, not locale. Okay?
Yeah, and I think that, even I learned yesterday that I think it was in Sweden, the Arabic language is prominent. So you really do have to put location aside in multilingual scenarios, in most cases.
I remember reading back in 2008, 2009 time frame, there was a research paper that came out from Microsoft that said by 2014, 73% of the population of the planet would have access to a smartphone, and 76% would be within striking range of mobile broadband. Can you talk a little bit about sort of how the rise of mobile has changed Microsoft's approach to multilingualism and sort of the sense of urgency that it may have brought to the company?
I mean, I think it's changing everything for everybody. Just anywhere you go out into the world, if you look around, everybody's like this, to the point where even in restaurants, nobody's interacting. They're just, and so, as I touched on a little bit, I think it opens up the whole world to wherever you are, and it changes your world as you go. And so many of us travel quite a bit, and you really rely upon this device to, communicate, to navigate, to do your business, keep your life running while you're traveling on business and so forth. So absolutely. And the percentage of the population that lives within the signal of, within a signal is also quite astounding.
Hello. I would like to make a comment which is related to multilinguality, but basically it's about language standardization. The fact is that Microsoft products are used a lot around the world, and part of it are also spelling checkers. And at least with languages like mine, Slovenian, small language, it really affects standardization issues because, well, what is, let's say, suggested by Office kind of becomes the standard, although it's not, let's say, official standard in these particular languages. And this question was also raised, I think, for Danish yesterday or the day before yesterday, So I think that Microsoft should also take into account that if we're talking about local communities, standardization for languages like ours is important as a message.
Thank you. And not just standards, but I think I also hear from you the quality and accuracy that those terms become standards.
I have a question for you, Paige, and it's looking at the Skype scenario in China. What's striking to me is right now how this is very much a desktop or maybe a tablet-centric experience. You need to have the high bandwidth connection to facilitate this. And what's not shown is when they're sitting on the peak of the mountain, that breaks down. And I'm not faulting you, but I'm wondering if you have a prediction for how this is going to evolve in the future into categories of devices maybe we haven't even conceived of that will enable it to bring it into this very, the interpersonal space of two people sitting in a room with no internet connection.
Yep. Yeah. I think it's interesting how, and thinking about, being in the localization business as we've evolved as an industry and as a world, the value that connectivity has on that multilingual experience being able to be rendered properly. It's out of the box, We used to localize and expect it to go, in a packaged product, in a box and sit on a shelf kind of thing, and now it's borderless. And I think that you can't ignore, as a part of your strategy for which languages, which markets, which scenarios, which technologies, that connectivity question, and understand, will the technology and the connectivity be able to support this language-enabled scenario?
I think we might have time for one last question. If not, then thank you. Oh, there's one more. Okay.
I have a question. Do you have a vision how the multilingualism what would be the side effect of the multilingualism? What I mean, it's proved that people who master more than 2 languages, actually they avoid diseases, brain diseases, and they have better ability to concentrate. So you show this dialogue, which is speech dialogue, which is multilingual, but and the text dialogue, which is multilingual, and speech dialogue, which is monolingual. And I think that this would increase the ability to study foreign languages. So do you have a vision how humans would develop themselves by the multilingualism?
I mean, I think it's really fascinating to the point of language learning that technology could be looked at as replacing the need to, it's not going to replace the need to learn a language. It enriches the ability to learn a language and to connect with someone from another language and to therefore learn more about their culture and bring that into your own. And so I think that that this trend towards multilingualism and enabling opportunities to connect across a language that you may or may not understand is only going to enrich us in, brain development, in cultural awareness, in relationships with others. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Paige.